Good morning, Year 6. It's Miss Airy here on Monday the 8th of February, and today, well actually all of this week, we're going to be looking at poetry. So we're going to look at a different poem every day, and today I have chosen for you a poem called Dragonfly Out in the Sun. I'm going to read this poem to you, and then we're going to talk about some imagery that has been created, and we're going to look at some techniques that the poet David Windle has used in the poem today. Okay, so Dragonfly Out in the Sun. I am a dragonfly, and I live on the breeze, between the reeds and rushes and the sun's soft fingers. I am a dragonfly, and my wings are like water, or as sharp as two swords cutting the air into pieces. I am a dragonfly, and my eyes are like glass, as round as the moon they see all that pass. I am a dragonfly, and my body's a spear, as sharp as an eagle I hunt for my prey. I am a dragonfly, and I float like a dancer over the pond's still surface, which reflects like a mirror my miraculous presence. Do you know how I feel? Okay, it's a beautiful descriptive poem there of a dragonfly out on this sunny day, and we're going to now look at two techniques that have been that are very present in this poem that the poet has chosen to use to help with the description and the imagery that is given to you. So first of all, we're going to look at similes and metaphors, and you're going to need to know this information to help answer some of your questions today. So just as a reminder, a simile is a word or phrase that compares something to something else, and you'll remember we use the word as or like. Now, a metaphor states that one thing is something else. It is a comparison, but it doesn't use as or like. And I've given you some examples here. So similes, her heart is like gold. If you turn that into a metaphor, her heart is gold. And you see there's quite a subtle difference in the two, and they do produce a very different effect depending on how you use them. So here's some more. The world is like a stage. The world is a stage. The simile, he eats like a pig. The metaphor, he is a pig. You are like a rock. You are a rock. Your eyes are like sunshine. You are my sunshine. Poor as dirt. Sea of sand. There you go, that's the last metaphor there. And these are some really good examples that you could often use in your own writing. Now, when you look at these similes and metaphors, you'll see that similes run throughout this poem, and we will look at that in a little moment when we do some read aloud, think aloud. So there we go, reminder of similes and metaphors. There are also in this poem some personification and alliteration, and so I've just given you a reminder. Personification is giving human qualities to animals or objects. So an example there is the tree danced back and forth in the wind. And I wonder if at the moment you can see any personification in this poem where something has been personified, it's been given human qualities. And I'm going to give you a little hint because this might come up for you for later. I'm going to tell you that in this stanza here, there is some personification. Okay, and now just a reminder of alliteration, and again there's quite a lot of alliteration going on in this poem as well. So here we go. Fair is foul and foul is fair. Hover through the fog and filthy air. So it's taken lots of words beginning with F there to have an effect on the reader. So the repetition of the same sound, that is alliteration. And I'm sure if you have a little look, particularly in, again, this first stanza, you should be able to see some alliteration. But I'm not going to tell you what it is because it will come up in one of your questions later. So that's that red box around that stanza is a good reminder of where to look when you see those questions. So now I'm just going to do a little bit of read aloud, think aloud, and I've put this on your task as well. You can do this with me or you can do this afterwards. I'm going to do a little bit of read aloud, think aloud, and then you may continue in the same style. I'm basically going to be annotating as I go and just thinking aloud what is being created here, what imagery is being created, what meaning is coming across to me as I read. So, if we start, I am a dragonfly and I live on the breeze. Well, living on the breeze, to me, that suggests quite light or weightless. Between the reeds and the rushes, well, that's telling me about its home, where it lives. Now, I do like this beautiful phrase here, between the reeds and rushes and the sun's soft fingers. Now, I'm going to not talk about that one too much at the moment because I think that will come up for you in just one moment when you do your questions. Okay, I am a dragonfly and my wings are like water. No, I really like that. Wings are like water, or as sharp as two swords. Now that's really interesting because that is telling me that the wings are like two different things. Why? Why has the poet decided to describe wings like water and as sharp as two swords? And that might be something for us to think about. Why? What image does that give to you? And when you make your notes, perhaps you could answer that question. Moving on to the next stanza. I am a dragonfly and my eyes are like glass. They're as round as the moon. And that's a really lovely image that creates. And I'm thinking, if eyes are like glass and they're as round as the moon, perhaps the glass is quite shiny. So maybe the eyes are shiny. Or reflective. And if they're as round as the moon, well, the moon is pretty big, so this must be telling me that the eyes are big. Okay. Now I'm going to leave that there, and I would like you to continue with the final two stanzas, doing just as I have done, so underlining and circling key words, key phrases, and I would then like you to annotate as to what's that telling you. Do ask questions like I have done, and also try and answer those questions, very much like we did last week with the Titanic. The more you ask, the more you start thinking of what those answers are and looking for the answers in the text. Okay, so with this lovely poem, what you're now going to do is answer some questions. So, blue and green group, you are going to be looking at the 4 imagery techniques that I talked about just now. So you're going to be looking for similes. Can you find 3 similes? And from your read aloud, think aloud, you should be able to do this quite easily. Can you find 1 metaphor? And you might need to go back to my example here to help you look for that metaphor. Can you explain how personification has been used for the sun? And if we go back to this page, you'll remember I drew a box. I gave you a hint to have a little think about how personification has been used there. And finally, can you give an example of alliteration in verse 1? Just as I told you earlier, that is the box that I drew around for you to find alliteration. You then have got some more in-depth questions, so I'll just read those through with you and then you can make a start at answering. So, why are the dragonfly's wings like water and swords? In my read aloud, think aloud, I asked that question. What image does that create? Can you find an example that gives the impression of a dragonfly being a gentle creature? And then, on a different note, can you find an example that gives the impression of the dragonfly being a dangerous creature? Now, this one will be really interesting what you say. Overall, how does the poet feel about dragonflies? How do you know? And what that means is, do you think overall David Windle likes dragonflies? Do you think he has a positive impression of them? Or do you think it's quite negative? As you read through the poem again, does he make you think of them positively or negatively? And come up with some words to describe that and explain how you know. And then, as an extension task, you only do this if you have the time. You could draw the dragonfly using all of the imagery and all of the clues that David Windle has given you through this poem. And we really look forward to seeing your answers to exploring this poem, and also if you get this far, we'd love to see some lovely drawings or even paintings of the dragonfly out in the sun.